and welcome to finding the cube roots and even higher roots. So for this type of problem, as you might recognize from before, we're going to have the radical, but before, when it was just the simple looking radical when there's nothing here, we knew that we could say that there was like a 2 right there, meaning that we're going to look for the square roots. So now we're actually going to look for cube roots. And if we look at this example, 2 to the third power is 8. That means 2 times 2 times 2 equals 8, by the means that 2 times 2 is 4, times that third 2 equals 8. So that's how you can simplify it to the cube root of 8 is 2, where 3 is the index. Before this was the index, the cube root, 3 will be the index. So with this example 1 right here, we have our negative, and that's before we learned that it was 2 times 2 times 2. So we're really thinking of what number that can multiply itself 3 times will give you the number inside the radical, and this is going to be a negative 2, because the negative existed outside the radical. Okay, with number 2, as we did before, we can break this fraction down to the cube root of 1 over the cube root of 1,000. Because it was the cube root of 1 over 1,000, we broke this into separate pieces. And before, we can think of 1 as being multiplied by itself 3 times, and still having 1 as the cube root. With 3 being the cube root of 1,000, we're going to look at a number that can multiply itself 3 times to give us 1,000. That would be 10 times 10 times 10. Or you can just think of it as saying we have a 1 and then we have 3 zeros. So the cube root of 1,000 is 10. Your answer becomes 1 over 10. Okay, with 3, you may be tempted to say not a real number because we have a negative in the radical. But actually, you can have radicals inside a cube root, because a cube root can have a negative number exist, because if you look at negative 2 times negative 2 times negative 2 being, let's say, negative 2 to the third power, where the parentheses include the negative 2. We see here we're actually going to get a positive 4, because negative times negative gives us the positive. 2 times 2 is 2. Then we have to bring down the negative 2 from before, and that's actually where we're going to get the negative 8. So negatives can exist inside the radical. So for this one, the cube root of a negative 27. What number can we multiply by itself 3 times to give us 27? You can think of that as 3 times 3 times 3, or just 3 to the third power. And so the cube root is the inverse of the third root, giving us just 3, including our negative. And that's the answer. Looking at higher roots, you're simply just breaking down what numbers can be multiplied this by the index to give us the number inside the radical. So if we look for if we look at what number will multiply 4 times by itself 4 times, will give us 81, you can just do some elimination and do 1 times 1 times 1 will give us 1, or 2 times 2 times 2 times 2, and that will not give us 81. But if you think about 3 times 3 times 3 times 3, that will give you 81. So that you can write that as 3 to the 4th gives you 81. So we say the index is 4, and that's the same as the 4th root. So those are inverses of each other. So the answer is actually 3. Okay, again, anything, if you multiply 1 times 1 times 1 times 1 times 1 times 1, you're still going to get 1. So the answer here is 1. Because no matter how many times you multiply 1 by itself, you're still going to get 1. Okay, and finally with 3, what can you multiply by itself 4 times and give you 2,401? You could go through the process of elimination. The answer would be 7 times 7 times 7 times 7. As you try these out, the 7 times 7 gives you 49 times 7 times 7. And you could even simplify this side, be 49. Bring down the other 49. And 49 times 49 is, as you would expect, 2,401. So the answer is 7. With some other higher roots, I believe this is part of a different section. These are some more cube roots, if you want to look at these. The cube root of the fraction 125 over 27, you could break this into 2 separate pieces. Of the cube root of 125 over the cube root of 27. And you'll see that we can break down that 5 times 5 times 5 is 125, so the cube root of 125 is 5. And the cube root of 27 is 3, because 3 times 3 times 3 is 27. Right here we did actually a problem down here in the bottom, so I know that that's 3, because 3 times 3 times 3 is 27, and the cube root of 27 is 3. And as we've seen before, anything that any amount of times we multiply 1 by itself, we still get 1. So the cube root of 1 is 1.